Shalom. My name is Ruchia Vital, and thank you for joining us here at Tov, the Jewish News Channel. Today, our guest is Professor Amihud Amir. He is the head of Professors for a Strong Israel. And we're going to discuss who's really in charge here in Israel, who actually decides what happens, what becomes law, and which laws are actually enforced. Shalom.
Glad to be here.
Professor Amir. We see all the time the government trying to pass laws, trying to enforce laws, with constant interference, even obstruction, from various government officials. It could be in the Justice Department or the Ministry, in the Supreme Court. They're not officials, they're judges. How does this come about? How did this happen here in Israel? I mean, we elect a government. I went to vote, and then I discover that my vote doesn't actually decide who runs the show.
Historically, Israel started out as a mandate of the British Empire. Now, the British, when they were here, we also had elections. There were elections to the Istadrut, and there were elected officials, elected Jewish officials. However, the British officials were the ones who actually ran the show.
Before 1948.
Before 1948, when the British were here. After the British left, the structure remained more or less the same. The level of officials, of public servants, unlike the United States, where there is constantly a change, district attorneys have to be elected. When a new government comes in, when a new president comes in, his ministers, the secretaries, actually change the people in their offices because they need to work with people that they know how to work with. In Israel, this does not happen. And when a new minister comes into power, he still inherits the entire administration of the former government. And the question then is, what makes them tick? And how loyal are they going to be to this minister? We have another problem here, and that one is a more recent one, and that's the Supreme Court reached a level of power that is unprecedented and unequaled in any government, in any country, in any Western country. There's only one country in the world which is quite similar to Israel, and we'll get to that, where there's ostensibly elections, but there is a powerful body that actually runs everything, and that's Iran, and I will make that comparison in a minute. But the Supreme Court, in some sense, it tells the people, you're going to vote for a government, fine, but they're answerable to me. If they want to come up with if the Knesset wants to come up with a law, I have to say that that law is legal. Exactly like the Ayatollahs say in Iran. They have a democratically elected parliament, and the parliament makes laws, but the Ayatollahs have to approve these laws. We have the same thing with our Supreme Court. Now, the Israeli Supreme Court has no checks. It's not even a question of checks and balances. It has no checks. For example, suppose tomorrow the Israeli Supreme Court decides that I want to, that the Prime Minister, that Netanyahu is actually responsible for what happened in October 7th, and he should be ousted. And they actually come up with such a resolution. You should now vacate the office. Is there anything in the system that says, no, you can't do that? In law, there is, because the law does not allow them to do that.
Well, in law, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not a lawyer, but if I'm not mistaken, if the law doesn't say something is forbidden, then it's allowed. In other words, the law has to state specifically that something is not allowed for it to be against the law.
Well, yes and no. Suppose the the mayor of Tel Aviv decides, well, I have to tell you something. I have the biggest city in Israel. I think that the government is wrong, and therefore I'm not passing any tax money to the government of Israel. It doesn't say anywhere in the law that the mayor of a city is allowed to not pass money to the government. It doesn't say that. So he should be allowed to do that? No, because administrative power has to be given by constitution in places where there are constitutions, or by the law. Legally, in order for a Supreme Court, for example, to say a law by the Knesset, by the Parliament, is illegal, there should be something in the Constitution or in the legal body in Israel that allows them to do that. And there isn't. So that is not a power that they have. They can't take this power. They don't have it. No one gave them that power. The problem is that in some sense, we let them get away with it. We accepted their rule over us, and it was done incrementally. Simply and easily, step by step,
like
step by
boiling
step.
A frog.
They took little steps, and in each one, we were quiet, and all of a sudden, we have here an impossible situation. Now, why is the Supreme Court not saying, okay, Bibi, you have to vacate? Because at this point, if he says, well, no, I'm not going to do it, then what they're going to need to do is tell the head of the police, okay, go into his office and take him out, which they would happily do. But they're not sure that the head of the police is going to actually do it. They didn't arrive quite there yet. They arrived far, but they did not arrive as far as that they can be guaranteed that the police is actually going to do something so blatantly undemocratic. But there is nothing in the legal system in Israel that stops them from trying. The only thing that is stopping them is their fear that maybe they're not going to be listened to, and they really don't have tanks. So this is because the people of Israel accepted on themselves the rule, the autocratic rule, the undemocratic rule of people who were not elected and who tell our elected officials what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. Now, this passed by osmosis down not just from the Supreme Court. The legal advisors of the government, they tell the government, no, you can't make this law, you can't make... Who told you that you can do that? Who gave you that power? Now, again, the government is the one who actually gave them the job. So the first time that the legal counsel of the government said, no, I am not going to represent you, or you can't do this, the first time that that happened, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I don't know, but the first time that that happened, the government should have said, you're out, you're fired. You're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're fired. They didn't do that. So once you don't do it once, you don't do it twice, now I'm allowed to do it. At this point, they're even canceling, the Supreme Court is even canceling Chukei Yesod. These are foundational laws that are supposed to eventually become
quasi-constitutional laws.
Yes, the idea was that these laws are going to become constitutional. And who would think that the Supreme Court can actually rule that the Constitution is illegal? No one thinks that. That does not happen anywhere.
Well, there was a whole process of turning them into a constitution.
Yes,
in the beginning, but which was also done by the Supreme Court. In the beginning,
the Supreme Court said, okay, yeah, we can cancel any law, but not those foundational laws.
Basic laws, yeah.
Basic laws. But now they're doing that too. They've been doing that for a few years now.
It's like the metaphor of how you boil a frog. You put him in cold water first, and then you just turn up the temperature incrementally.
And he feels everything's okay.
He feels everything's okay until it's too late, until he's boiled. And that's where we are now, basically. Otherwise, he would jump out, right? So the question is, why are these people who are in these positions of power, what they call the deep state, these officials in the various ministries, the directors general of various ministries and so on and so forth, why are they of a certain bent? Why are they of a certain political bias? Why do they have those positions? Why are they obviously so against the right making changes? Why do they come from there? How did that happen?
When the State of Israel was created, that entire generation, although the majority were not religious, but they all grew up. They all remember grandfather's house, and they all remember they actually grew up with fundamental religious, Jewish religious values, and that's how they grew up, and they rebelled against it.
You can't pass it on to your children. If I have, I'm interested in Japanese painting, let's say, it's my hobby, maybe, but my children won't necessarily have anything to do with it. If you don't live it as a lifestyle, you can't pass it on. So now we're already 3 generations away from that, and here we are.
Now, so what happened is the following. In fact, and this is something that there's a fata morgana here, because we think that the Israeli society is split half and half. That's not the case. The Israeli society is not split half and half. 80% of the society is traditional, even today. And that is quite clear because the 64 mandates that the government has now does not include the voters of Saar and the voters of even Gantz and a bunch of people who actually have traditional voters who understand that this is a Jewish country and
Even
they want it to be a Jewish country.
I mean, Ayelet Shaked didn't get in, and she certainly had a lot of
they may hate
people.
some of them. They may hate Netanyahu for various reasons. In America, we hear that there's what is called TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. So here we have a BB derangement syndrome. We have a BDS, but they do want a Jewish country. On the other hand, there are about 20%, and in fact, the hardcore is a lot less than that, who don't know anything about Judaism, don't care about it, and they don't want to know about it. And these people, they want values in their lives. Everyone wants a value in their life. And now comes an international new religion. And I call it religion. People don't understand why, but the progress religion.
Well, before the progress religion, there was the peace religion.
Yes.
In the 80s, before Oslo, the decade, I mean, Oslo was just the culmination. It started long before.
But it wasn't yet a religion. It was a conviction, but not a religion. Progress is a fanatic religion. It's a cancel religion. It's a dichotomic religion. In other words, with progress, you cannot be a little bit of a sinner.
There are no grays,
you're either,
only black or white.
Either you're good or you're bad. And if you're bad, you're canceled. You don't have rights.
Well, that's
Marxist. You don't have any democratic rights.
That's Marxist.
In Oslo, people really, really wanted to believe that we can have peace. Now, I told a lot of my non-religious friends, you can think that if that the Arabs, all they want is this piece of land, and if they get this piece of land and they can control it, everything is going to be okay. But I told them, I'm a religious person, and I understand that if they came to me, if the UN, Guterres, came to me and said, okay, we spoke to the Arabs and they agree, they're going to give you everything you want. You have total peace, no problem. All you guys have to do, every citizen of Israel has to eat a cheeseburger for lunch once a week. I'm going to say, look, peace, peace, with all due respect, but go back to the drawing board. I'm not going to do that. It's against my religion.
So for them to give up any of the land of Israel, what we call the land of Israel,
they don't think it doesn't hurt them.
Is like for a religious person to eat a cheeseburger.
For the Arabs.
For the Arabs.
Yes, exactly.
For the Arabs.
Not only to give up land. To give up land is one thing, because we're talking, there are a couple of things.
In other words, this is a religious conflict.
Islam. Yes, it's definitely a religious conflict. I mean, who is the Hamas? Who are the Shiites? Who
and
are
you're
the
saying that,
Hezbollah?
that these people who are, these 20%, let's say, of Israel, I don't know if it's 20% even, you said 80% are traditional?
80% are traditional and religious. 30% are religious, really religious.
So 20%, 15%, maybe 10% of people who are deeply secular, who are atheists, who don't believe in God, for them it's extremely important that this not be a religious conflict between Israel and the Arabs.
But in fact, it became for them also a religious conflict. Today, they actually believe that since the Arabs are oppressed, then they're right, and we're not. So for them now, it's a religious conflict for them also. You see in the United States, I mean, gays for Palestine. It's really laughable. But what do they have in common?
You're talking about radical progressives. I'm sure there are plenty of conservative gays. In fact, I know for a fact there are.
Oh,
in Israel,
of course there are.
too.
There are in Israel, and there are also in the United States.
They're just being used by the progressive movements.
In fact, we know one of the most beloved people in Israel now today, Douglas Murray, is gay. So some of them actually believe that even though the Arabs may kill me, but that's only because they are oppressed. And because they're oppressed, they're even allowed to do it.
Well, we saw something similar. Some of the people in the south of Israel, in the kibbutzim that were attacked on October 7th, not all of them, but some of them, are unable to change their mindset regarding the Palestinians. The same people that they would drive to hospitals and help, even give them money, and that worked in their homes and so on and so forth, and came to slaughter them and knew them, and they're unable. I saw interviews with a number of people, mostly women, who unable to
A religion
to give
doesn't
it up.
change. People went through the Holocaust and they still believe in God. A religion does not change because something bad happens to you. If you truly believe, then you're going to stick to this religion. I look at a religion as something that a person believes in, no matter what the facts are,
So
and no matter what
what
happens
you're
to
saying
me.
is that when a person, a Jewish person, perhaps more than other people, when they don't have their own religion, there's a vacuum,
Yes,
and something else goes into that vacuum.
absolutely.
And in this case, it could be the peace movement, and it could be what you called the Bibi derangement syndrome, and it could be progress. One of those things enters into that vacuum, and sometimes they all converge.
Of course, yes, they sometimes converge. But of course, in my mind, there's a huge difference between them, because the peace movement, you could maybe excuse people who did not have enough information and they thought maybe it would work. People really thought it would work. Today we have information and we know that it didn't work. The Bibi derangement syndrome, okay, if Bibi is gone, then they may come back into the fold.
Let's try to sum up what we've heard so far. We've seen that when Israel started out, we had a certain generation of people here who had a Jewish past, Jewish traditional past. They rebelled, but it remained in their veins, in their blood. They were unable, in many cases, to pass that on to their children, that love of Judaism, which they may have rebelled against their parents, but they still retained a sentiment for Judaism. They were unable to pass on that sentiment to their children or grandchildren.
Sometimes they managed to pass on the love of country.
Right.
But by the next generation, even that did not happen.
Where do we go from here?
A lot of people, those who are not deeply entrenched in their fanatical beliefs, as you gave an example of some people in the kibbutzim. Jonathan Swift, for example, said that you cannot use logic to change an opinion of someone who reached that opinion not through logic.
Okay.
Logic is not what plays here. And we are seeing more and more a movement, it's a demographic movement even, I would say, of people who are Jewish and who believe in Judaism, who believe this country is ours because it's a Jewish country and because we're Jews and therefore it's our country, has always been our country. We want it to be here for 2,000 years. There are more and more people who believe that. And not necessarily they're all walking around with the tzitzit hanging out. These may be people who just do a shiva for their parents when they die, who eat kosher in the house, who maybe make kiddush and then go to see a football game. There are all kinds of levels, but these are people who still feel that I'm a Jew and this is my country. And there are more and more of those. In fact, we saw in the army now how the youth fought like lions. And most of these people, there are a lot of religious people there, but a lot of them are not.
And we didn't give them credit. We thought Generation Z,
yes, we thought
they're in their phones.
But
they proved us wrong.
They proved us very wrong. They are great.
And that's our hope for the future.
That's our hope for the future, because in the top echelons, the generals are not that. We can see that. The generals are not of this mindset. They're still of the old mindset. But the young people are by and large very eager, and they're going to grow, and eventually you'll have no choice. So it may take another 5 years or another 10 years or another 15 years, but we're not going to be 80%. When we're going to be 95%, then there will be no choice. We just want to hope, of course, that Israel can stay around until then. But yes, that's hopefully God is willing, and
on that
we'll stay
hopefully
there.
optimistic note, I'd like to thank you, Professor Amihud Amir, for being with us, the head of Professors for a Strong Israel, and to thank our viewers for watching. Don't forget to support us and like us on all our various channels, on Instagram and YouTube and so on. Shalom.